drill more and more obscure combinations of these positions and cuts. Instead, we're going to start talking about the circle theory. This will allow us to intuitively grasp many of the more obscure cuts as well as transitioning from one guard to another. It also helps us add power to a variety of cuts. One of the great strengths of circle theory is that a great many subtle varied moves can be understood on a physical level without having to learn them all as separate moves. Circle theory ties all the moves together into a pattern and allows one to associate the proper power-generating body movements with the proper parts of the pattern without giving it detailed thought. After we finish circle theory, you'll benefit from backtracking and studying the simple cuts again, thinking about it more as circles rather than just planes of striking. We'll want to apply circle theory's power-generating principles then and explore how board positions can provide an actual stopping point for the flow of the circle. These guards that we're talking about, that we're cutting from one guard to another, that's a natural stopping point where your sword just comes to a stop all on its own. You don't have to fight to stop it. And as we get into circular patterns, we'll find that that's a useful tool to know when you can stop the sword without straining. So, circle theory. Basic cuts have been taught as circular shots that trace part of the circle, stemming largely from the shoulder. So even what we're doing now, there's no denying that there is some circle involved here. It's a part of the circle, and the shoulder is the center of that circle as it comes across. We're going to return to those ideas later in the advanced class, but first we have to understand full circle shots and the establishment of flat planes and movement. To do this, we'll return to basic horizontal cuts. So we're going to do this first with the stick. Here. Okay, so we go one side and the other. So we're first going to establish it with the stick because that's nice and safe, and then we're going to pick up the whirligig for the first time and see if anyone loses themselves. So let's start out here in high right. Probably easiest to start out with your hand a little high on this one. We're just going to cut from high right across to high left, and then let it just keep going until it comes all the way back to high right. Come across until it stops being comfortable, let it flip over, comes all the way across to high right. It's a circular motion, rotating mostly around the circle of the wrist. Again, there's a little shoulder and body involved too. So the important thing here is one, that there's a follow through. Avoid lifting the elbow unnecessarily on this one. Keep the elbow down. Allow it to turn at the wrist more. Think about keeping it nice and flat. We don't want it to get up like this. Try to keep it flat across there. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, so the same kind of motion for the offside shot. Start over here in high left. Kind of cut across until you're in high right. Let it flip over. Bring it all the way back around to high left again. And recycle the shot.
How far across bring your elbow? I have a tendency to bring my arm all the way across.
You get more shoulder power when you do that. It's not always necessary. We're going to talk about how far a sword needs to turn in a circle to generate power, and it all depends on certain circumstances. If you're doing a short chop, you're going to need your shoulder over so you can get enough power. If you're turning it at the wrist and you've got 360 degrees of motion, you probably don't have to. And you can have a faster, more fluid shot without bringing the shoulder over. Just depends on the circumstance. All right. I guess we'll cover that first. So, if anyone is struggling with this at all, one thing that'll help is to think about how you're holding the stick. If you're holding it like a hammer and you're holding it real firm, none of the circle stuff's going to work very well for you. You're going to get here and there's going to be this chunky spot where you try to flip it over. It doesn't look like a circle at all. Let's do this. You got to relax the hand. For me, sometimes I'm gripping the sword mostly between my forefinger and my thumb. Other times I'm gripping the sword mostly between the pad of my hand and my little finger. It depends on where it's at in the circle. The important thing is to have a flexible grip that allows your sword to move smoothly through the motion. Whatever you need to do to get your hand, your wrist, your arm out of the way of that sword to allow it to move smoothly, that's what we're aiming at eventually, is learning how to do it. That can be a little different for each person, honestly, depending on how your physiology is. But the goal is to allow the sword to move without struggling against the motion. So one of the things that we're aimed at is making it a full circle. We covered that pretty well. The flat plane is very important, and we want to avoid coning all the way around. I don't want it to leave the table and go into a cone. I want it to stay flat right on the table, so it's getting any longer. Right? That means you've got a flat plane of motion where the weight of the tip of the sword is moving naturally with centrifugal force pulling it around the center of that circle. Now that flat plane could be at any angle. It could be tilted this way, it could be tilted that way, it could be tilted this way even. But whatever angle that flat plane is at, and wherever the center of that table is, the sword needs to move in a flat plane skirting along the table. If you start to cone, so here we are on the flat table on top of my head again, right? If you start to cone like this, do this a little bit, you'll start to feel that centrifugal force keeps trying to pull it down. You actually have to have tension here to be able to move it around like this, whereas when you flatten it out, no tension. So that's what we're after is the flat plane. So that seems pretty obvious. And so you wonder, why do people cone? Well, I've seen very advanced fighters even cone, especially under pressure. I find myself doing it all the time. And it happens when your conscious brain is going, I need to get there faster. I'm going to make the shortest distance between 2 points so I can hit my opponent faster. It all makes perfect logical sense, but it's not the way things really happen. So like if I'm here and I want to hit my opponent there, fastest point would be this, but I know that doesn't work. I know I need a circle, right? And so I end up with this funny compromise where it goes like this, and I try to hit the target. And that's coning. Here is what that shot should be doing. It should be moving, there's the table, it should be skirting along the table all the way to the target. That would be a nice, natural, flat shot. But it's a long 360-degree path to get there, right? My brain's going, no, hurry! But when you hurry, you don't have very good leverage on your weapon, which means you don't get it up to full speed. You're struggling against the weight the whole time. Honestly, it's going to take just as long or even longer to get your weapon to the target when you cone as it would to go all the way around the big circle. But when you get there, it may not be hard enough. You've exhausted your arm, you've strained your elbow, you've done a whole bunch of bad things. And because it's so inefficient, you're not relaxed and moving naturally. You're not going to be able to adjust that strike. You're really dedicated to what you're doing at that point. Rather than if you're taking the big circle, you're still loose. You're still loose back here. You can change your mind and go somewhere else. Whereas if you're doing this tight little cone, you got all that bad stuff happening and you've locked yourself into the blow you're going to throw. So what I always watch for is when I'm having a bad day and I feel like I'm not hitting hard or I'm feeling strain in my elbow, I look at coning's the first thing that I look for. Am I coning? Is that what's messing with my fight today? And often it is. And that's the thing to correct. So watch out for coning. I've seen plenty of advanced fighters